Chassa, my name is Zoe Zoll, and I play quarterback at Ralston Valley High School, and it's time to sanction flag football in Colorado.
What's good, y'all? It is your host for this episode, Cody Stoffer here, and we got another interview, but this one is going to be a curveball here, and taking place on February 8th, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome our very first Colorado flag football player onto the show here. If you'd like to introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, and the position that you play and what school, that would be fantastic.
Hi guys, my name is Zoe Zoll. I go to Ralston Valley, and I play quarterback for our flag football team.
And y'all had an awesome season, and we'll get into that in just a minute here. But first thing that we like to do here is just give you that connection with the fans here a little bit and build that common ground because, you know, they are fans, and most athletes we've come to find are also fans at one point in their experience. And so we'd like to hear what your favorite experience was as a fan or watching sports, whether that was a live game that you saw when you were younger. It could be a game that you saw on TV, and it could be any sport on any level.
I would say, so I'm a Vikings fan, which is definitely
I'm sorry.
I know. It's a hard fan base to be a part of because they really always let us down. But my favorite memory, I was watching the game with my dad, and this was the Vikings versus Saints game. And just Stephon Diggs having that one amazing catch and winning the game at the very last second, that has to be one of my favorites because me and my dad went absolutely crazy. And because we thought they were going to lose and disappoint us once again, but they ended up winning it. So that was pretty exciting. So that's definitely one of my favorites.
They held off the disappointment for just one more week, which is sometimes all that we need.
We lost the Eagles pretty bad, but
No, I actually remember exactly where I was in that game. I was in the dining hall with our co-host Coach V, and we thought the game was over. We were like, all right, well, you know, next week it's the Saints and the Eagles, and then that crazy play happened, and literally like somebody dropped their tray out of shock. It was a wild game. So yeah, that's definitely, at least, you know, as a Vikings fan, they let you down sometimes, but they also, you know, kind of give you a reason to smile sometimes. So that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have some fun moments.
Oh, man. But, you know, that's funny to hear you talk about the Vikings and you being a quarterback. You know, they've had some success at the quarterback position. So I want to know, is Kirko an inspiration for you, or are there other athletes that have been kind of an influence for you getting into athletics and even getting into flag football?
He's definitely up there. I respect a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. Purdy, who's 49ers, I respect him a lot, being Mr. Irrelevant and coming back, and now he's in the Super Bowl. I think he's a big inspiration because he was definitely like an underdog in that type of situation. I also play softball. That's my main sport. And so like Monica Abbott and all the like former like softball players also give me a lot of inspiration just with like women in sports. But yeah, definitely a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL definitely inspire me.
Yeah, I love that underdog story, and I appreciate you also sharing, you know, that primary sport that you have. And, you know, I'm kind of interested, if any, what kind of overlap of skills do you kind of get from, like, I want to guess a stereotype here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are you a pitcher in softball by chance?
I am not.
Oh, breaking the mold.
I know. I've played every other position but pitcher, actually. So
that's wild.
Yeah, I play first and third.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where that zip comes from, though. You know, you need to rocket it across the infield.
Yeah.
So, all right, I see you there.
Yeah, it definitely translated a lot over. Obviously playing quarterback, the throwing, it was definitely hard at first because softball you're trying to get that backspin, and so learning how to throw a spiral at first was really challenging because it's definitely a different throw. but catching was pretty similar. Me and my dad have played catch with a football multiple times in the backyard, so that kind of translated over. But it's definitely very similar in the aspect of like throwing and like plays and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a team sport, and you got to make some athletic plays here and there to make it all come together. So I see that, and I guess evaluating yourself as a player. 'Cause sometimes athletes, we can be our own worst enemies sometimes and be a harsh critic on ourselves. But I want to kind of give you a chance to just explain yourself as a quarterback and just some things that you think separate yourself from other quarterbacks. I mean, you guys played a lot of different talent across the state this year. And what do you think are some things that you take pride in or you think that you do very well at the quarterback position?
For one, I think pressure. I definitely try not to let pressure go to my head. One of the examples was that Chatfield game in the semifinals. It was close. It was a lot of pressure, and I feel like I was able to stay calm in the very last seconds, be able to come back and get that win. I feel like I played 3 sports. I've lettered in 3 sports at RV, so I feel like athleticism is one of my top things. Throwing on the run and stuff like that definitely helps me. But I will say I gotta owe it to my wide receivers and my running backs. They definitely also did really good.
Yeah, we'll definitely have time to shout out and take some scouting notes. We're gonna kind of steal you as a source in that regard. But looking back at the season, you referenced that Chatfield game. Obviously, I feel that you guys had a strong showing at the tournament and a strong season. But I kind of want to get the perspective from you and the player side and just kind of what this Ralston Valley season looked like for you guys, whether that's week by week or kind of the highs and the lows or, just anything kind of interesting or any details about this season that you think should be out there, especially just because, I mean, stats weren't really publicized or available, so, and I mean, the jamborees were kind of everywhere throughout the state at the same time. So we'd like to just kind of hear how the season went for you from your eyes.
Yeah, we definitely as a team put in so much work because I think we were one of the only first year teams. Most of the teams had been playing 2 years. They started last year. And so because we were kind of already back at a disadvantage, I feel like we worked so incredibly hard. Again, practice every day after school, and we just wanted to prove ourselves. Because I think everybody thought we weren't going to be as good. And then that first weekend, we just came out and we tried as hard as we can. We came out with 3 wins, and then we definitely stood out because we won I think our first 9 games, and then one of our lows of the season was our loss to Pomona. That definitely set a fire under us because I don't know, we kind of gone through our first 8 or so games and really felt like we were winning, and then I think we got a little too excited, and then that loss against Pomona I think was the best thing that could have happened to us because we really got mad after that point and just wanted to come back and prove ourselves that nobody else could beat us.
Yeah, I feel like obviously we all want to win, but sometimes you learn the most losing. And I think that has been the case for some of the top programs in the state, regardless of what sport that you're looking at, honestly, because it forces you to look back and just think, all right, well, what are some things that we could have done better? And so to hear that kind of lit the rest of the season going forward, and I mean, y'all lit up the scoreboard as well and scored in droves. And I kind of want to just give you some time to shout out. I'm going to interview some of your teammates as well. So this will be a chance for a cross reference for sure. But, who are some of the players that you played with this year that really stood out to you, and who's coming back next year as well?
I think I had my strongest connection with Gianna Tate. She's a senior this year, so unfortunately she's not going to be here next year. But we just had a lot of plays that were designed. Because we were a first-year team, we kind of made up plays as we went. And me and Gianna would make up plays during school or after school. We would hang out and try to make some plays. And I think me and her, she knew I was going to make a good throw, and I knew she was going to catch it. And she had a lot of really good plays over the season. Um, and then also Addie Cadwell, she's so fast. Like I wish I could be that fast. She was definitely like one of our best players for sure. Because I could just hand the ball off to her and she could go run 20 yards down the field. And then Carmen, I could always trust Carmen on defense. She played safety and she always did a super good job. Along with that, Jill, she goes to Stanley Lake, and she was our only player who didn't go to RV, and she killed it right off the bat. She played incredible defense. I will say I don't think there was a player that like I didn't have a strong connection with. Gianna and Addie were definitely like my like best two receivers, but I could trust anybody on our starting offensive line, which I think is what made us such a good team because we all trusted each other.
Yeah, and there's no problem having those security blankets, especially getting acclimated and, like you said, being a first year program and just really getting your first crack at it. Those relationships and those bonds, over the field matter so much. And then to hear that you guys are spending time also, after practice, before school, making plays, like that's football in its purest form, I feel. That's just unadulterated fun. And that's honestly really inspiring and kind of makes me transition to this next question. And I want to ask, is there like a specific moment or like, can you pinpoint when you're like, oh yeah, like I love playing football, whether that was from this season or, I guess growing up, did you ever aspire or think that this might be a possibility or think about playing football at any point prior to now?
I played lacrosse with one of the A West players, Danica Rodriguez, and she told me about it last season. And as soon as she started telling me about it, I immediately went to the athletic director at RV and I was like, we need to have flag football next year. And like once a week I'd go in and be like, how's flag football looking? And I think that's where I really started getting like the urge to want to play. And then during the season, I will definitely say being a quarterback is stressful. Like it was definitely a lot more stress than I thought it was going to be. But we just had a few, like I think our first game is when I really fell in love with it. The first game was definitely hard. I had a lot of interceptions those first 3 games because I just didn't realize like rushing how fast that would be and all that stuff. But I just wanted to get better and wanted to improve. And I knew our team could do great things because of how good those first 3 games went. And I just really got hooked after those first 3 games.
When would you say that you at least felt that you got your feet kind of underneath you and you started to feel like the speed of the game and started to feel acclimated, I guess?
I would say so. RV hosted. I think it was either the second week or the third week. It might have been the third or fourth week actually. But RV hosted, and that week, all week we had practiced with rushing because that was one of my biggest flaws, was that just like getting the ball off in time. And they would have it like 3 yards close to me and they would just go, and that was all practice and it was definitely frustrating. But those 3 games at RV went great, throwing on the run and stuff like that. And then after that, I felt like quarterback really clicked.
And getting to do it in a place that's familiar as far as your own turf, defend the home stadium. That's got to be a part of it for sure. And, I'm glad that, it all came together eventually. And, it's one of those things where it's like no one wants to practice their weaknesses, but there's only one way to really get better. And it's being an all around player. And obviously that yielded great results. And that's awesome that you brought it up to the AD. And I mean, didn't you guys as a program end up having 2 teams or even more? I don't quite recall.
We had 2 teams, but they were definitely like pretty large teams. But yeah, there was a lot of traction for it, and I think we're gonna have an even bigger team next year. We do have a lot of seniors leaving, which is pretty unfortunate and sad. But the traction that flag football has gained at our school, now all the other women athletes want to do it, and so hopefully next year we'll have an even bigger team.
Are a lot of these athletes that you see signing up, are they multi-sport athletes such as yourself, or have there also been a handful that, this is their first time kind of hopping into a sport because it's football? Have you seen any examples of that?
I think every single girl, at least on my team this year, had played a sport before, or even multiple. I know like Addie Cadwell and Jill, they had soccer season during our season, and they would have to go switch back really quick. But I think all the girls who want to play next year are just multi-sport athletes wanting to stay in shape. That was like my main reason to do it originally, is to stay in shape for lacrosse and softball. But now I love it so much, and I think other girls have realized how much they love it. And it's a great way to stay in shape for like soccer and stuff like that, while also just being a good sport to like play.
I can't even imagine doing a second season at the same time. That's wild. And dominating at it. That's shout out to them for pulling that off.
Yeah.
And I guess like, you've kind of talked about the excitement and the buzz that it's created. And I guess like, do you think that has been like a net positive for the school in general and just like the Ralston Valley community? And I guess like, what was kind of the community's reaction and support like to have for a new sport that even you specifically advocated for?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's definitely started off as like everybody thought it was powder puff, and like when I would tell people about it, they'd be like, "Oh, like powder puff, like in a homecoming activity, like it's." And then once we started like getting like recognition from different places, I could tell there was a lot of spark, and then people would start showing up to our games. I know the football team definitely kind of got behind us too. And so overall, it just like it kind of started off as like everybody thought it was kind of a joke. But then as we gained traction and we saw like, oh, we're winning a lot, like we're doing good right now. Everybody kind of got excited for it, for sure.
That's awesome that y'all got that rallying cry from the community and just let everyone know, yes, this is a sport, we are athletes and we make plays. And to let y'all's record kind of speak for itself as well, that's got to be something special. And to also have, a player from Stanley Lake come over and play, I mean, I feel like, at least to me, that seems like the want for it, to be at other schools is definitely there. And with that kind of in mind, what would be kind of your sales pitch or your plea to CHSAA? Because, we make ours all the time. We cover college flag football as well, which, by the way, listeners, go ahead and check out Coach V's recaps when those come out. But, there's a definite future in this sport kind of everywhere. And I just kind of want to give you, an actual player, a chance to use this platform to advocate for it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we work just as hard as any other sport. We put in so much work and so much effort and so much time even outside of practice and everything. And it's not powder puff. It's not like, it is a real sport with real athleticism and real injuries. Like, we deserve to get sanctioned because it is a sport and it should get the recognition that it is getting.
I agree with that 100%. And CHSAA, the pressure's on. We're all watching and we're all hoping and waiting because, I mean, I just had so much fun covering the chances that I got to go out to any of the jamborees. I want to say I went out to DPS. I want to say that was either week 1 or 2. It was really early in the season. And then we were able to make it out to a couple of regionals, just kind of spread out throughout the metro area more or less. And then obviously, I mean, the final state tournament at the Broncos facility, I mean, what was that like, I guess, from a player perspective? Because I feel like a lot of players in the state don't really get that opportunity.
Yeah, it was definitely crazy. Like, it was a little surreal. Like, I knew we were going to be there, but I didn't really realize it until we were actually there and we were playing. And just the energy was crazy. Like, our chat, like, kids were there from both schools. It was like loud. It was energetic. Like, you could just tell there was so much like energy towards the games. And it was so fun. Like, I wish. Yeah.
It was definitely electric. And, now obviously not everything is perfect, and your guys' season didn't get the ultimate end result. But, obviously, while you do have seniors graduating, you do have returners such as yourself and, plenty of other great athletes, as well as probably other athletes from other sports that are going to give it a try and probably make plays in the fall. And what kind of lessons are you hoping to bring to the team? And I guess, what is that, not only being the quarterback, of course, but being somebody who was a part of the program this past season? What does that leadership role kind of look like to you? And what do you hope to instill in either the new players or just in the program from your stance?
I think we want revenge. We lost in overtime to Cherry Creek, and I think we were all definitely upset that was how our season ended. Obviously it was a great game, but I think everybody who's returning is hungry, and we want to go win. And then new players, I think me and Carmen, the other junior, who will probably be captains next year, we're gonna tell them straight, like, we want to win, and we're here to win, and yeah.
Got to get them locked in and ready to go.
Yeah.
And what do you think separates y'all's program from maybe other programs in the state, whether it's, the talent, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the culture off and on the field? I guess, what do you think kind of makes it, at least specifically, the flag football program at RV unique?
I think our culture, I think we were all pretty close. We all really wanted to win. And our energy, like when we would get up and we would be like energetic, we were unstoppable. I think that's one thing that some teams didn't have. Like we would be yelling on the sideline. I would always be yelling for my defense. And I think my defense would be cheering for me. We have a lot of videos where our sidelines go crazy. And I think that energy really sets us apart.
The energy in general around flag football is definitely so unique and different, and something that I love about covering the sport. And just, everyone is so invested into it versus, I feel like sometimes, at least in the tackle side of things, it's like, you'll lose people because they go and watch like film of like the last drive, and, that'll eventually happen. But flag just moves so fast, I think, almost compared to any sport, honestly. It's such a fast game. And so being able to just have that full on focus, and a lot of players, playing both ways just because they're great athletes, and, coming across instances like that definitely helps build into that, buy-in from everybody on the team on every single down. And, having that be a strength of a program, I definitely think separates, some of the more successful programs from some of the programs that have a ways to go. And you kind of already have talked about some of the games a little bit here, but I kind of want to get almost a little bit more specific looking back against the season. I want to know, what was one of your favorite matchups, whether that was an opposing player, and it could be numbers too, if you don't like know the names off the top of your head or anything, or like a defense that you think really challenged you and you like could really respect and appreciate it.
I think two that really stand out are Green Mountain, and then again Chatfield at the very end. Green Mountain, we kind of had a little bit of beef with, and I think we came out. Their defense was good. They were a really good team, and we came out with energy that we didn't want to lose. We wanted to win, and that was probably my favorite game, because everything just clicked. I think that was our first game where everybody like came together as a team. We clicked. All of our plays were working great. Our defense was having interceptions. Like, it was just a great game.
So should we circle Green Mountain and Ralston Valley on our schedule next year? Is that a rivalry game or a budding rivalry?
That is definitely – so it's not supposed to be a rivalry like our schools, but there was definitely there were some TikToks, there was some Instagram posts before the game, and there was just a lot of tension going into that game, and I think we showed them who RV is.
Okay. I like the lore. I'm here for it, honestly. And
Yeah. Yeah.
this is how it starts, and it's just so interesting to have a sport that's newer to the scene, and it's like you're already built, like you're making history right now,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh yeah, no, like Green Mountain and Rossa Valley, they don't really mess with each other, and it all started over some TikToks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's very exciting, and I guess Green Mountain, that I got to see them a couple times, and they had some solid athletes on their team for sure. And I guess I'd say that they were. I don't know if I would call them underrated, but are there any opponents that you played throughout the season that you think were a little underrated, or maybe any players that maybe like stuck out, like maybe the team wasn't having the best season, but like a specific player on a team, and it, like, once again, doesn't even have to be a name or number shout out, but just certain units where it's like, oh, like that cornerback, they I can't underestimate them because they'll make me pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Pomona wasn't an underrated team. They made it to the Final Four. But their quarterback was also on defense, and they would rush me, and I have to give them props. They were fast. They could throw a good ball. And so definitely them. Obviously, I know, again, not an underrated team. A West, I have to give props to Sarah Walker and Saylor. They're the quarterback and their wide receiver. They're just incredible athletes. And they also seem like, I got to talk to them at the Broncos game, and they also just seem like amazing people. Let's see here. Valor. We had a pretty heated game against them. We ended up losing. But they had some incredible athletes on their team. The girl who would rush me on their team was fast. And she was definitely an athletic person. There were again, flag football. I don't think any girls who have played flag football haven't really played, like, they've definitely played another sport before. And so I think there's so many athletic girls playing flag football that it's hard to pick out of like a few, but those are definitely the ones that I remember.
I was about to say, the ones that are chasing you around for your life for an entire game,
Yeah.
those are the ones that are burned into the memory.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And yeah, I mean, Sarah and Saylor, I mean, they currently have that crown right now, so it also gives you something to kind of aim at, heading into next season. And obviously you have other sports that you're doing, like you said, lettering in 3 sports, so you don't get to work on everything all at the same time. But what are some areas that you're hoping to work on this off season, like in your game personally, to get ready and maybe even contend for a state title with it hopefully being sanctioned?
I've been lifting a ton of weights ever since the season. I go to the gym every single day. I was doing that during the season, but I think just getting stronger for next season, being able to throw that ball harder, run faster. And then, I don't know, me and my coach actually talked today about different plays. And I think just having some plays that we know will work and just making our playbook better will also definitely help us next season. Because again, we came into this with no experience, and so we would practice a play all week and then get into a game and it just wouldn't work. Which I think next year we'll be more prepared for. And I'm excited to see what plays we can come up with for next year.
Already in the lab. I mean, that's
Yeah.
going to be the difference of, teams that execute and who don't. And I mean, being able to see the game in X's and O's and being able to transfer that into, that first person view is going to be such a huge advantage for you heading into next season. And, I know that you play a handful of sports, and this is so far in the future because I feel like you still have plenty of playing days ahead of you. But would you ever consider coming back, whether it be flag football or other sports, and coaching and providing that guidance?
Oh, for sure. Over the summer I coach a little league baseball team. And I love doing it. They're my favorite. It's a group of little ballers. And I would definitely in the future thinking about coaching or anything in the future. Definitely softball too. All of the above. I love coaching.
So I was about to say, so you're already in it, so you already know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is the way.
Yeah.
And bringing it not as far into the future, but bringing it a bit more on the near side, there has been, kind of a push for flag kind of all over the place. I mean, we're talking Olympics, we're talking on the NAIA level. Flag is something that we cover, on a national scale, and there's been more and more programs there, and kind of a push, or not even a push, an explosion, because a push makes it sound like people don't want it, but an explosion that is the sport of flag football is kind of happening in every direction. And, I just kind of want to get your 2 cents on it. If there was an opportunity, obviously it sounds like you're a softball player first, so I'm assuming that might be the way, but a lot of these schools, they kind of make package deals. Would you have any interest on potentially playing flag football on that next level, on that collegiate level, or even on that internationally competitive level, should the opportunity be available and make the right fit?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Again, softball is my first sport, so definitely trying to get recruited for that. But if that doesn't work out 100%, I think playing sports in college would be so incredibly cool. And just playing anywhere on the field. I got to play safety for a few games, which was so fun. So just playing anywhere. I think flag football is going to grow so incredibly much for women in sports. And I think, yeah, I would love to do that.
Yeah, the opportunities are definitely knocking, and we've seen, a steady growth across a lot of major sports when it comes to women's sports. I mean, Caitlin Clark has got to be probably a top 10 athlete just known on the planet right now. And, by the way, listeners, if you've heard, by the time they hear this, Caitlin Clark's probably the all-time leading scorer, honestly, for women's basketball, and if not, really dang close. And, it's very exciting to see all that. And I guess, like, what does that mean to you as a, currently in high school, an aspiring woman in sport, to be a part of this, trailblazing path that you're currently on, but also, for, that next generation coming up to kind of knock down these doors and open up these pathways? Have you ever kind of thought about yourself in that way as a trailblazer? And if not, first off, give yourself some props, and what does that mean to you to kind of look at that perspective?
Yeah, I hope that people are inspired by like flag football and sports like that, because I think football is such like a man sport, and now that like girls are able to play it, I think that's so cool. And then just like women athletes, I think are so inspirational, because they have to overcome so much, especially like Caitlin Clark being so incredibly good, and just other like amazing women athletes. I think is just so inspiring.
And as somebody who has, a younger sister and seeing these huge stories pop out, I just want to say on, behalf of her and also behalf of myself and the entire podcast, thank you for what you're doing for the sport, for athletics in general. And I mean, it really, I think, is going to go a long way. And also thank you for your time on, this interview. And, in the spirit of gratitude, we do think that it's kind of a tradition here on the pod to give you a chance to just shout out anybody and do your own round of thank yous and talk about, anybody who's been important to your academic, athletic, or personal life. And, this could be friends, family, coaches, teachers, or fellow players, just kind of everybody that you'd like to shout out along the way. And, seeing as that you still have your senior season, we'd love to have you back next year and give you another chance to run it back on all these things, but still want to give you that opportunity now.
100%. First, I definitely want to thank my dad. I've been playing softball for 9 years, and he is always willing to go practice with me. He taught me how to throw a spiral. He would always like encourage me at games. He would tell me what I did wrong, which sometimes I didn't enjoy, but definitely helpful now. And he's just been such a huge part of my life. And then both Coach Johnsons, I know they have the exact same name, which is a little confusing.
No way.
I know. But the offensive coach, Mr. Johnson, he was my teacher freshman year, and now he's my coach. And we were super incredibly close this season, just always talking about plays. I'd go in during lunch, and we could write up some new stuff. at practice, he was my, like, he was definitely the coach that, like, helped me so incredibly much just with everything. Other Coach Johnson, obviously he didn't help me as much because he was the defensive coach, but I got to play safety every once in a while, once in a blue moon, and I had such a blast doing that. And then just everybody on my team. Addie's super fast. Gianna obviously was definitely one of my favorite receivers. Kate Stecker, we called her Sticky Fingers, because she always caught a ball, even if I made a bad throw on it. And just everybody on that side. And then defense-wise, we had a girl named Angela. She was homeschooled, and she got to come play for us, which was so cool. And she played great on defense. She broke her hand at one point during the season, and she played through it and played phenomenal defense. And just everybody on my team, they were just such a big part of this experience. And I'm just so thankful to, like, have these memories with them and how good we were, and especially for a first-year team. And I'm bummed we don't have the same team for next year, but it was a good year. It was a good year for sure.
Absolutely, and one that we completely, enjoyed the parts that we got to see, and we're hopefully looking forward to seeing some more of it. And we're going to keep that pressure up on Chaz, so we're all eagerly awaiting that. And it's also exciting that this interview is going to be released during our, we're kind of transitioning to that women's flag football time of the year, and we definitely want to get this interview up as soon as possible. And we thank you so much for, taking the time to sit down and talk shop with us.
Perfect. Thank you so much for interviewing me.
Of course. And we're looking forward to the postseason season or senior season interview as well. So we're excited to see how that goes. And, where can the listeners give you a follow? We got to get that NIL kind of like brand built up here and get that following up for you. So where can the people find you?
Zoll 26.
Easy enough. Easy enough there.
Name and number.
Early to the game there, and we're looking forward to seeing what you do, and looking forward to maybe some highlights that come through on there as well. So thank you so much for that, and go ahead and follow Zoe on those socials. And while you're at it, if you haven't already, go ahead and give the pod some follows here. We're at Playmaker Corner on Twitter/X, but we're Playmakers Corner everywhere else, be that Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, where we're going to have tons of great, little clips from this interview up on the TikTok, as well as other content that we do. Like I said, we're covering women's flag football right now. We also got those top 5 interviews coming out and more Colorado girls flag football interviews up on the horizon. So be sure to follow, subscribe, turn on notifications, and all that jazz. And I've been your host for this episode, Cody Stauffer, signing off.